very difficult to be competitive against English clubs. It is so far ahead of all the other leagues. The gap seems to be widening.
In this email, City's chief financial officer asked permission to alter a series of sponsorship contracts, to which a club director replies, of course, we can do what we want.
This is a video of a Newcastle United fan on TalkSports outraged at the idea that Newcastle United star man Alexander Isak could be headed to Anfield.
If the little cartel top six want their own little cartel of their own little Premier League, and clubs aren't allowed to compete, remember?
That's not true, though, is it, really?
It's true.
It's
But
not.
you're the richest club in the world, aren't you, Peter?
You all vote for it. The whole league votes for these things to come in.
We're the richest club in the world, but we're not allowed to spend because Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham decided they'll make the rules, they'll decide who can compete, they'll decide who can spend, and they'll decide who cannot spend.
Every year on January the 1st and July the 1st, football comes to a standstill, all because of 6 billionaires, Todd Boehly, Stanley Kroenke, Joseph Lewis, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, John W. Henry, and Sheikh Mansour of the UAE hold the transfer market hostage. How is it possible that these 6 men alone pour £1.56 billion into transfers, while the rest of Europe's giants combined, Spain's La Liga, Italy's Serie A, Germany's Bundesliga, and France's Ligue 1, spend less than 3.3 billion euros? How is it possible that spending by the Premier League clubs has exploded to 3.5 billion euros this summer, up from 2.4 billion euros just the previous year, with the so-called Big Six responsible for almost half?
But we are having a problem, and this window is reflecting it, and that is that the top 5-6 clubs with the PSR rules are getting further and further away. Aston Villa, who are trying to get into that group, are having massive issues. Crystal Palace have found out by winning the FA Cup means that your best players are going to get stolen off you, taken off you. Newcastle trying to break into that group. So it's really, really becoming a massive problem that the Premier League at some point and the ownerships are going to have to look at.
Is this to be labelled as ambition or naked greed? What chances do clubs like Newcastle United and Aston Villa have when England's elite can casually spend £450 million in a single window without blinking, getting the signatures of Florian Wirtz, Hugo Ekitike, and Swedish talisman Alexander Isak? What kind of fairness exists in a sport where players will go on strike to join these clubs? Oliver Glasner threatened to quit rather than watch their best talent, Mark Gahey, be swallowed by the raids from Merseyside.
And it looks like, Jim, that move to Liverpool is off. Mark Gahey stays at Crystal Palace as it stands, but our information is that move to Liverpool, £35 million fee agreed earlier today, is now off. Furthermore, it's been suggested to me by sources close to Mark Gahey that Oliver Glasner, the Crystal Palace manager, has played a direct role in this deal not going through because he threatened to walk away from Palace if his captain was sold.
And the bigger question is the Premier League's so-called profit and sustainability rules protecting the game or enabling a financial empire, a monopoly that makes the idea of the European Super League look tame. Because if 4 years ago fans were outraged at the proposal of the European Super League, shouldn't they be more outraged now? Is it just me, or is the Premier League's Big Six slowly forming into a Super League of their own where no one outside of themselves will be able to compete? After 19 consecutive years at the helm of Chelsea Football Club, Roman Abramovich's reign came to a sudden end in 2022. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the UK government froze all his assets, forcing him to sell the Blues to Todd Boehly. But 3 years on from that historic sale, Abramovich's business dealings are resurfacing like a ghost in the night, haunting Chelsea with devastating consequences. On September the 11th, 2025, the Football Association charged Chelsea with 74 breaches of profit and sustainability rules, citing financial irregularities that stretch back to the 2010-2011 through 2015-2016 season. This revelation sent shockwaves through the footballing world, but Chelsea isn't alone in the spotlight. Manchester City's meteoric rise was built on the back of sponsorship deals tied to Abu Dhabi's sovereign wealth. Blockbuster signings followed: Kevin De Bruyne, Raheem Sterling, Kyle Walker, Riyad Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, and countless others. But behind the curtains, leaked emails revealed something darker: a deliberate scheme to disguise owner injections of cash as inflated sponsorship income. In practice, a £50 million sponsorship deal might secretly funnel an additional $25 million from Sheikh Mansour's company directly into the club's coffers, fueling Manchester City's dominance while bending financial fair play rules to the breaking point.
Hold on, I've got a document here. They said things like, As we discussed, the annual obligation of this company, of this state-owned sponsor, is £3 million. So the remaining 12 million will come from alternative sources provided by His Highness.
The Premier League responded with 115 charges against Man City, branding its most serious financial scandal in English football history. Yet, after a 4-year investigation and 2 more years of silence, nothing has happened. No punishments, no accountability, just silence.
English football's largest and most controversial case has a start date. Yes, the Premier League's long-awaited hearing into Manchester City's 115 alleged charges will begin on Monday. Sam Wallace and Jonathan Liu joined us on Back Pages tonight, last night, and agreed it is paramount to resolutions.
Meanwhile, clubs like Everton and Nottingham Forest have already faced swift point deductions for far lesser financial breaches, which begs the question, is the Premier League truly committed to investigating its biggest clubs, or are Chelsea and Manchester City shielded by their status in the Big Six? And if that's the case, what does it mean when we see a club like Liverpool spending almost £500 million in a single transfer window while still appearing compliant with FFP? Is this a fair and balanced system, or is the Premier League too reluctant to punish its cash cows, the clubs that bring in inconceivable revenue and international status? I'm talking about the Big Six. Well, let's find out. On November the 15th, 2023, amid the ongoing saga surrounding Sheikh Mansour's Manchester City and their 115 financial fair play related charges, the Bureau of Investigative Journalism dropped a bombshell. The report revealed how Roman Abramovich, the man once at the helm of Chelsea Football Club, quietly sidestepped financial fair play rules, catapulting the club to football's highest echelons, often at the expense of their rivals. The investigations exposed that the payouts reached far beyond the usual suspects. An Italian agent instrumental in bringing Antonio Conte to Stamford Bridge was among the beneficiaries, alongside chairmen of other clubs, Swindon Town FC and CSK Monaco. These payments cast fresh suspicions on Chelsea's 2013 signings of Willian and Samuel Eto'o, suggesting the club's rise may have not been entirely organic. To grasp the full picture, one must understand Abramovich's covert link to Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. Leaked documents show that Russian oligarchs exploited financial networks in Cyprus, benefiting from a tax regime that favored Russian companies.
Roman Abramovich was the ultimate beneficial owner of 2 Cypriot-registered shell companies called Finoto and Grosora. In 2003, these 2 companies each acquired a 12.5% stake in Russia's TV advertising company Video International for a mysteriously low price of just $130,000 each. By 2010, the entities had made $30 million in dividends from Video International. But in late 2010, Finoto sold its lucrative stake in Video International to another Cypriot shell company called Med Media Network. And soon after, Grosora sold its stake in the advertising company to yet another Cypriot shell company called Namiral Trading. Despite Video International reporting revenues of $3 billion in that year, these stakes were sold for just $20 million each, a price that appears to be below a reasonable assessment of their fair value. The ultimate beneficiary of Med Media Network was a man called Sergei Roldugin, and the ultimate beneficiary of Namiral was Alexander Plekov. Roldugin is a Russian cellist and conductor with no other source of official income, but he's known Putin since childhood and is godfather to his daughter, and he has been described as Putin's wallet by the Swiss government, while Plekov has been identified by the UK government as another close friend of Putin. So what this paper trail suggests is that Abramovich effectively transferred a 25% stake in a Russian company with multi-billion-dollar revenues to Putin for a price that appears to be below fair market value.
It was a web of thorough businesses that Roman Abramovich funneled secret off-the-book payments, fuel that would propel Chelsea into a new era of dominance. When his takeover of Chelsea was rubber-stamped in 2003, the Office of Fair Trade effectively rolled out a red carpet for Russian money to seep into the Premier League. That single moment ignited Abramovich's relentless pursuit of footballing glory. The accounts of Chelsea's parent company, Fotstem Limited, revealed that Abramovich injected a staggering £224 million into the club as an interest-free loan. No one determined clarity on where this fortune originated. No regulator asked the obvious questions. No auditor drew a line in the sand. Why? Because the cash came from Abramovich's own company, money whose origins were deliberately obscured, money that would be used to lower Europe's brightest stars into Stamford Bridge. Leaked documents later reveal the source of this money, Calverdon Worldwide Limited, a company incorporated in the British Virgin Islands and owned outright by Abramovich. Calverton's funds were transformational, football's equivalent of rocket fuel. Within months, Chelsea splashed out £12 million on Ian Robben, £24 million on Didier Drogba, and £7 million on Peter Sheikh. The spree was unprecedented. In just 2 seasons, Abramovich spent £230 million on transfers, more than the combined outlay of Manchester United, Real Madrid, and Juventus, the established giants in world football. And it worked. Within 2 years, Chelsea shattered half a century of frustrations, lifting back-to-back Premier Leagues in 2005 and 2006. Over the next decade, they would add 3 more league crowns and 2 Champions League trophies, cementing themselves amongst Europe's elite. And behind the silverware lies the uncomfortable truth. Chelsea's golden age was built on the foundation of shadowy offshore dealings and financial loopholes. What appeared to be a fairy tale rise, in fact, was a carefully orchestrated defiance of football's rules. Success bankrolled not just by ambition, but by secrecy. And even after almost 2 decades at the helm of Chelsea Football Club, after Roman Abramovich's departure, the ghosts of Raymond's reign still whisper through the halls of Stamford Bridge. Despite pouring over £1.5 billion into transfers, securing marquee names like Enzo Fernandez, Moses Caicedo, Raheem Sterling on a wage of £300,000 a week, and European golden boy Mikhailo Modric, the Blues remain lost, spending favorously but soullessly, chasing a success that money can no longer buy. And while Chelsea stumbles, another power rises from the shimmering of the Gulf. Since the introduction of financial fair play in 2013, one club has not merely danced around the rules, but rewritten them entirely. A club that cloaks its dominance in luxury, its ambition in deception. Manchester City.
The time has come to bring on the
That's why no one did 4 Premier Leagues in a row. That's the reason why it's so difficult. Take responsibility, my friends.
Behind the blue sky curtain stands Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed of the Abu Dhabi United Group, a man whose wealth is infinite and whose reach has silently reshaped the very fabric of world football. What Chelsea once did in the open, Manchester City have perfected in the shadows, outspending, outmaneuvering, outlasting every rival while hiding in plain sight. This isn't just about football anymore. It's a chessboard of billionaires, offshore accounts, and political power plays where money just doesn't talk, it dictates the very outcome before the whistle even blows. If I were to trace back the origins of the 115 charges that now haunt Manchester City, I'd take you to one fateful day, May 13th, 2012. The air was thick with tension, the kind only football can conjure. Manchester City was seconds away from heartbreak, trailing 2-1 to relegation-threatened Queen's Park Rangers. 140 miles away in Sunderland, Manchester United's players stood waiting, believing they were champions once again. The Premier League officials, confident that Sir Alex Ferguson's men had done enough, began unpacking the winners' medals in the Stadium of Light Tunnel. The champagne was chilling, the trophy gleaming, ready to be paraded in red. Then, in the 91st minute, Eden Dzeko rose from the chaos and headed Manchester City level boot, ripped through time and history. The Etihad erupted, the commentary became legend, and Manchester City were the champions of England for the first time in 44 years.
Это невероятно! 1-2 на протяжении всего второго тайма. Манчестер Сити искал себе силы, чтобы не только счет матча сравнять, но и выйти вперед. И вот эти силы были найдены под занавес поединка, и болельщики врываются на газон.
While the world celebrated a fairy tale finish, something darker was already in motion. 3 days before the title was sealed, far away from the pitch, Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed was laying the groundwork for a sporting empire. What seemed like a fairy tale was in truth a transaction. For Manchester City fans, the 2012 Premier League title felt like divine intervention, a story written in the stars and sealed by Aguero's immortal strike. But beneath the roar of the celebrations, a darker current ran through the club's veins. While rivals limped under the weight of UEFA's financial fair play restrictions, Sheikh Mansour and Abu Dhabi seemed to have discovered a backdoor, a way to twist the rules until they bent in their favor. On the surface, everything looked clean. Etihad on the stadium, Etihad on the shirt, and Etisalat, Arba, and the Abu Dhabi Tourism Authority lining up behind them as sponsorships. But the deeper you looked, the murkier it became. Etihad's CEO was Mansour's half-brother, and the sponsorship money flowing in was anything but ordinary. It was lifeblood disguised as business. Just 3 days before Aguero's last gasp goal, City's financial report exposed the truth. £1.1 billion had been already poured into the club under Mansour's reign. When the dust settled, Mancini was discarded, a casualty of a system that demanded constant success.
Roberto Mancini has been sacked by Manchester City after 3.5 years at the club. The 48-year-old Italian is one of the most successful managers in the club's history, leading City to their first league title since 1968 last year.
Behind closed doors, Internal emails revealed the panic. City's chief financial officer warned that they were £9.9 million short of UEFA's FFP compliance. The solution: fabricate more Abu Dhabi sponsorship revenue to fill the void. It was no longer football, it was financial alchemy. And when it wasn't enough, the boardroom turned to deception. Executives discussed backdating sponsorship deals, paying bonuses for trophies never won, rewriting reality itself to avoid UEFA's wrath. The rules were no longer boundaries, they were puzzles to be solved. Then came the next act. With Mancini gone, the loopholes were secured. Sheikh Mansour opened the vault once again. 115 million flooded into new signings. Fernando from Shakhtar Donetsk for £40 million, Stefan Jokatic for 26 million, Alvaro Negredo for another 26 million, and Sevilla winger Jesus Navas for 20 million pounds. Each arrival strengthened the empire. Each transfer a brick laid on the foundation of a dynasty built not just on talent but on manipulation and shadow finances. What began as a fairy tale of sporting triumph was morphing into something else, a story not of miracles but of power, secrecy, and a quiet rewriting of football's moral code.
I'm a whistleblower. I have to expose and give to journalists, credible journalists, the real deal.
In 2015, this hacker began publishing thousands of confidential documents and emails he had stolen from European football clubs, and he gave them to journalists to look through, like Christoph.
My name is Christoph Winterbach, worked on the Football League's project, Der Spiegel.
In 2018, he and his team published a series of articles based on emails they found from Manchester City employees, confirming that, yes, it was in danger of violating FFP.
They were very open about that in their internal emails, and they were desperate to find a scheme to make it seem like they were passing those regulations.
What they found worked something like this. In order to make room for all its spending, the club began charging companies inflated prices to sponsor them, but only had them pay some of it. Abu Dhabi's sovereign wealth fund, led by Sheikh Mansour, would provide the rest, so that when the companies would pay City, the club could count it as revenue, giving it more room to spend on players.
So they set up vehicles for hidden cash injections from Abu Dhabi into the club. And sometimes even it's the same people actually making decisions in the club and in the company who's paying the club.
Like in this email, where City employees list the funds the club expects from sponsors and what should come from the sovereign wealth fund. Christoph's got more.
Yeah, hold on, I've got a document.
Sounds like there's evidence of them covering up the scheme as well.
They had to sometimes reassure themselves. They were like, they should go through the companies to us, to the club. Yeah, like ideally we should do it that way.
In this email, City's chief financial officer asked permission to alter a series of sponsorship contracts, to which a club director replies, of course, we can do what we want.
Again, that is not a normal behavior.
If true, this scheme would have allowed City to spend far more than other clubs, afford more star players, and ultimately win all these trophies. So if it's true, it means that City was cheating.
With the Premier League title all but secured on the final day of the 2024-2025 season, Arne Slot emerged from the dugout wearing a calm grin of a man who had conquered England. Yet, beneath that smile, there was intent, something cold, methodical, and calculating. When pressed by reporters on how he intended to build upon Liverpool's first title in years, his answer was startling as it was cryptic. Radical changes will be made. Few took him literally, but as the summer unfolded, it became clear that Slot's words were nothing short of prophetic. What has followed can only be described as a revolution, not just by Liverpool standards, but by the standards of any title-winning side in modern football. The club has shattered its own transfer blueprint, embarking on a spree that has seen Florian Wirtz, Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kerkez, and Hugo Ekitike arrive for a combined fee exceeding £250 million, and then, on deadline day, came the coup de grace, Alexander Isak. Newcastle United's talisman pried away for a British record £125 million.
I promised you breaking news. Here it is. Vinny O'Connor, deliver it.
Alexander Isak is officially a Liverpool player. Alexander Isak is Liverpool's new number 9. They've confirmed it officially now. He has signed in a British record transfer of £125 million, and he has signed a 6-year contract with Liverpool. And he's had this to say: it's been a long journey to get here, but I'm super happy to be a part of this team, this club, and everything it stands for. It's something I'm proud of, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm just happy it's done and that I can get back to work. I'm looking forward to seeing my teammates and the fans and getting back out there.
Champions are not supposed to behave like this. They consolidate, they refine, they sustain. But Liverpool, under Slot's quiet ruthlessness, seem to be consuming. Since the mid-2000s, only 3 reigning champions, Chelsea in 2010 and 2017, and Man City in 2023, have ranked among the top 3 summer spenders. For Liverpool to not only join the list, but lead, suggests something far deeper than ambition. It suggests hunger, an unrelenting appetite that blurs into greed. Even